Alrighty then, so good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, folks. Name's Jay Kelto. Welcome back to The Thing, and I just got done watching Orson Welles' 1948 film noir, The Lady from Shanghai, and oh my god, was that a film. So, in essence, the story can be boiled down to this. Michael O'Hara, played by Orson Welles, is an Irish sailor who gets dragged into a convoluted web of faking deaths, murder, framing, and all sorts of absolute madness. Madness in the nth degree. And it's all for the love of Rita Hayworth. Oh my god, was this... This was an absolutely awesome film. I love this as a film noir, I love this as a film in general. A lot of it is down to the fact that I feel Orson Welles really does work well with addressing complexity in terms of narrative. Not just, in this case, complexity of plans and just convoluted plot points and whatnot, but also just your general complexity of narrative arc. Which was essentially pioneered in films like Citizen Kane and really pushed to the outer limits with films like Confidential Report. But here it is more or less plot complexity that he's dealing with as opposed to narrative structure complexity. And here it is absolutely at its most convoluted. The screenplay is tight, is absolutely just... There is plenty of mystery, and it keeps you glued to the screen. There's never a dull moment in this. Yes, there's a romance. Yes, there's a romance building between Hayworth and Welles. Yes, there are the occasional moments where the supporting cast just really do seem absolutely off their rocker. But, and you know, they're kind of off their rocker, in which doesn't really feel like it's contributing to the plot. No, but every single frame of this film can keep you glued to the screen, and that's what I really do love about this. And while much of that can be attributed to the screenplay, I feel like a good chunk of that has to be the cinematography. The way the film looks is absolutely just brilliant. A lot of it is classic noir of shadowy lighting, very kind of a day for nightish brand of filming in certain sequences, in the certain ways where Rita Hayworth is lit. There are a few off-kilter shots, traditional Orson Welles close-ups that are uncomfortable as all heck. And then there's the funhouse scene. The scene in which Orson Welles walks all over a Salvador Dali painting, in essence, and soon gets to confront Rita Hayworth and her husband in a wild scene in a hall of mirrors, in which there is just... It is such a beautifully visual look, just going for it. It looks brilliant, it is so layered, and the thing is, it reminds me of the same mirror work that Welles did in Citizen Kane. The scene where an elderly Kane is, kind of hobbling down the hall, kind of, very tense, just marching, and you just see that shot of him marching past a mirror, and you just see Kane getting smaller and smaller and smaller as you go deeper into the mirror. That is, in essence, what I feel really does work in terms of the funhouse scene, particularly the Hall of Mirrors sequence. That is just one knockout sequence, and honestly, it has been called one of the greatest endings in film history. I attest to that. You can quote me on it. It is one of the best endings in film history. You can quote me on that one. Now, I will say this. Acting is a very weird beast, because the supporting cast are all great, and they all act, in essence... God, I keep saying in essence. Let's try and change that up. At their core, the supporting cast is really madness. absolute madness. The husband, he can be drunk at one point and then start raving mad in other moments. And associate, be it servant, detective, yeah, it gets complex. Grisby, that character is very slimy, very oily, very batty, if anything. And so you have that, and just the rest of the supporting cast can sometimes feel very, 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 out there. They're absolutely going hell for leather. They're absolutely nuts at some points. And that really contributes to the twisted atmosphere of this film. Nothing is as it seems, and already nothing is what you'd even come close to considering normal. The way people act, walk, talk, just everything just is madness to the nth degree. Orson Welles and Rita Hayworth are a very interesting thing, though, because their acting is on point. They do what they do. They do what they can with their roles. They act perfectly. They're perfect in their roles, but a lot of what they do seems to be sleepwalking through the film, seeming to just be calm and cool and collected, while the rest of the film almost seems to be falling apart in terms of mental state. Excuse me. So outside of a few of the semi-jolly little moments early on in the film where there's a little banter between Hayworth and Wells, and outside of the times where Wells really has to, lose it, after the courtroom sequence, early on in the film, really the two just kind of, it's not the kind of, oh, do I have to read these lines? Okay. No, it's more of the kind of, okay, so you're supposed to be completely cool, completely calm, completely collected. That is really what they are, and that's them to a T, and it works brilliantly. I guess if you'd have to tell me what I would throw against the film, there are a few things I do take issue with, but I guess the biggest thing, though, can be sometimes the convolutedness of the plot. 'Cause the thing is, I can get it, I can get behind it, and the thing is, the way the film is shot, the way it's acted, the way it handles and feels, thanks to the screenplay, makes it gripping. You are glued to your seat. You really do want to find out what's happening, what's going on, the whole 9 yards. But in the case of, what is it? But in the case of just like the average viewer being able to follow this film, that's where I think the convolutedness does get a little over the top. I mean, that's a very subjective thing to say, but in all honesty, I guess that's the only thing to take away from the screenplay, is the fact that sometimes it does get too, complex for its own good. It works, though. Once you get it, it works brilliantly, but it's just getting there that I think might be a hurdle for some. Another thing is the score. If there was ever a moment where Wells ever needed Bernard Herrmann to score his film, this would be it. And I mean, Herrmann wasn't a stranger to film noir at this point, because by 1948 he had scored Hangover Square, and he was well on his way to scoring On Dangerous Ground. But the thing with this film, though, is that it's a very by-the-numbers Hollywood score, and that's the unfortunate thing I've noticed with a lot of Wells films during the 40s and 50s. Unless it's something like, say, Macbeth, or a film or a film like Othello, unless it's one of those types of films or something even further on like The Trial, most of the time, Welles unfortunately gets saddled with very bland, generic Hollywood scores. Now, this score serves its purpose, it works well, and there are moments where I'm just like, the tone really is, I can really get into this. But most of the time, it just feels it feels a little forced onto the film. It doesn't allow for atmosphere, it doesn't really allow for it doesn't really build on mood. And that's the weird thing. Welles, there's good reason why Herman was a perfect match for Welles in terms of scoring films like Citizen Kane, and if it was left intact, The Magnificent Ambersons. Both men were not conventional in their medium by any means, so it makes sense to have unconventional people approach their work with something that will serve the film better, not make use of what is already considered the norm. So that would be another strike I'd have to put against the film, is that the score is a bit of a hassle to deal with. Although I will say this, I don't know how Herman would have reacted to using that song that was written for the film. It's not a bad song by any means, and of course Rita Hayworth gets her little moment to sing her heart out, not necessarily like bellowing or anything, just kind of, crooning in her own way. And it really does work well, and it fits the mood, but it's not entirely it doesn't feel quite as necessary, but at the same time, it really does. It's really probably one of the few moody things about the film, is that song. So, on the whole, what do I think about this film? I love it. It is beautifully shot, written, acted. Like I said, the only things I take away from it is sometimes the screenplay can get a little too complex. So if you find the film is very hard to follow, you might either this film does seem to be for you, or you have to give it time, because everything is resolved by the end. The thing is just the journey getting there that you might take issue with. That, and also, like I said, a few seconds ago, the score is very generic Hollywood affair of the time that doesn't serve the film, doesn't create the proper mood or anything. So, with that said, I highly recommend this film. You can get it on DVD, if you want to stream it, whatever, watch it. Now I'm going to do something a little bit unprecedented. Join us next time when we are going to throw on our black gloves and get to dealing with some fine, sharp-feathered friends. That's a terrible segue for saying next week we're going to be talking about the 1970 giallo thriller, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. You know why? Because I'm getting the Arrow video release right in the mail, hopefully soon. Looking forward to doing that. If you liked this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you want to find me all around the internet, you can find me in the description down below. And with that said, hope you guys all have a wonderful day or whatnot, and catch you later.